Trash. While it has been famously cited as another man's treasure, in most cases it lives up to its name. Nobody really wants this stuff. It's here for a reason. But in Pokemon, and in video games as a whole, something interesting happens with that notion. Everything is supposed to exist with a purpose. A beautiful video game world like this wouldn't include literal trash without a reason, right? Now, often that reason can just be another piece of world building. A dumpster hiding in the alleyway of a neon-lit city, a trash can sitting on the corner of a cement-paved suburb. These are some of the set pieces that fill out the depths of these worlds. And while you usually can interact with them, actually doing so often has you looking at the bottom of an empty bin, or staring at true, honest-to-goodness, unusable trash. But every now and then, you find an object of actual value hiding in a trash can, perhaps as a reward for taking a look into these depths of the world. And that one occurrence can go on to inform the player to check every single trash can available from then on. The game's effectively showing us another place to explore. And Pokemon in particular is a bit infamous when it comes to this interaction. There was that one time on the SSN in the original set of games. Now they've got everyone inspecting masses of otherwise empty trash cans out of fear of missing out. But see, now I never know. There could be something in there. And what's the worst that could happen if I look? I'm known as the freak who digs around in the trash? The trash man even? Well, the trash man just got a free burn heal, so who's the freak now? Case in point, there are generally tons of empty trash cans compared to the seemingly very few that contain anything useful. And that brings us to today's objective. I want to assess the trash of these worlds and the rarely found items inside, and put the questions to rest once and for all. Is it actually worth it to check the trash in Pokemon? And is the feature underutilized to the point where it shouldn't even be in the games at all? I also want to look at the storytelling, if any, that these rarities offer us. Does the trash paint a picture in this vibrant world? All of these riveting questions, and maybe even more, will be answered on our Trash Can Treasure Tour of the Pokemon universe. Our tour will be conducted going generation by generation of games, from the very beginning up until the present day, grabbing every possible item out of the trash as we go, and then drawing those conclusions. So without further ado, let's jump into the games and dig through some garbage. Trash cans and our hopeful prizes inside have been in these games since the very beginning. Starting from the top in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, we're introduced to the idea and really let in on this notion that we should be checking everywhere, and that means even the garbage. There's a handful of trash cans spread around the game, enough set dressing to give places a normal and put together feel, but certainly nowhere close to being in every house. They're relatively spread out. We can find our first piece of actual collectible trash in Vermilion City. It's the beautiful port I can't resist coming back to. If you climb aboard the SS Anne docked in the city's harbor, you can find a Great Ball in the bottommost trash can of the boat's kitchen. And that's pretty sweet. It's still relatively early in the game. Nice enough item, and it's free to those willing to look in the garbage. Not really getting anything deeper from this one story-wise though. The guy next to the can says he's chopping onions. Does this really look like an onion? Not on my watch game. I know an onion when I see one, and it definitely does not look like this. But something else kind of awesome happens here too, at this particular can. It's just not really in the good way. Because this is the only item you can find in a trash can in Gen 1. And don't worry, I promise they get more extensive and worth talking about in later games, but hear me out, cause this one is important in and of itself. Because this lone occurrence tells the player, hey, you can find items in here too. You probably want to be checking these from now on. Just for that to never happen again. And these are the first games, the Pokemon Blueprint. So that makes this the trash can that had so many players checking every waste receptacle they could find for the rest of their careers as trainers. And to extend some fairness, it is just a thing that RPGs do, and it's a free item. It's not really harming anyone, but I will say that it is clear and direct communication by the game, and it's bad communication at that. The subtext of this interaction 100% stuck with people in this case. Check trash cans, you could get stuff. But with no future rewards for doing so besides witnessing a ship captain getting sick, yuck, this singular instance just makes you feel foolish for ages to come. And not to mention, it's further cemented by the Vermilion City gym puzzle being based on interactive trash cans to open a door to Lieutenant Surge. And you ultimately get a gym badge for your trouble there. But the message is once again clear, check the trash. But it is sadly a fool's errand. And that's it for Gen 1. I find the first stop on our tour to be plenty disappointing. a borderline meaningless pickup that teaches you to do something that is never relevant again. This first foray into trash cans was unfortunately pretty mediocre, so I would not rate these games highly on their trash can content. But since I'm still hopeful for the future, let's now move on to the second generation of games where we'll hopefully be able to find garbage that lives up to our rigorous standards. And oh boy, do gold, silver, and crystal deliver. This is Gen 2. We're on the Game Boy Color. We're hanging out with gold. We're hanging out with whatever you name this brooding fellow. We're hanging out with quillfish even. Folks, we've got quillfish on the line. That's how you know this is the next level. And so it only makes sense that the trash would be on the next level as well. It's still pretty similar to Gen 1 though. There's a handful of cans and only one with anything inside. This time we'll be heading to the restaurant in Celadon City, where those who look closely find the incredible leftovers item inside the garbage can. And this is brilliant. What a step above. It's a restaurant, I'm a freak digging around in the trash, I find someone's discarded leftovers. It makes perfect sense. But that's only half the reason I love this so much. Leftovers, a proper noun in Pokemon, is a hold item that restores 1/16 of the user's health at the end of every turn. Essentially passive regen on a held item. In any other traditional RPG, an item with this effect would be something like a ring or orb of vitality. But in Pokemon, you're just feeding your pets nasty old food scraps that you literally found in the garbage. It's incredible. I'd absolutely look in a diner's garbage for something like that. And it's not just a gag, either. The healing effect goes to make it one of the best, if not the best hold item in Gen 2 with extremely wide uses, making this trash can pickup an incredibly strong offering. This is a peak of interactive storytelling, with its fun and charming presentation on one hand, and then mechanical value and power on the other. It is such a Pokemon thing to have one of the best items in the game hiding in a trash can, and that it makes perfect sense for that item to be there. This is a real reward when it comes to leaving no stone unturned. You find a diamond in the rough if you really go looking for it. I dare say we're nearing surrounded by beauty territory with this trash can. And I'll also note that this is one of 2 obtainable leftovers in the games, the other being on a static encounter with a Snorlax, so the item is by no means hidden in or exclusive to the restaurant. You just get more of a good thing if you really dig for it. It's an actual reward of meaning that isn't exclusionary, it's just right. And so all in all, while we still only have a single trash treasure in this set of games, the fun and value of leftovers goes a long way in making up for it. Hopefully the trash continues to be this high quality as we move along, the only note being I hope that we get more of it than just the one. Gen 3 is a general improvement when it comes to trash, but something of an odd pattern seems to have formed here. Like in Gen 1, Gen 3 trash is only found aboard the various ships of the region, which I don't think necessarily really means anything, but it's just a bit weird that the little trash that there is can only be found on boats and nowhere else. Maybe it's just a really clean mainland, but they don't give the same care to the ships. In Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, you can grab leftovers in the trash on the bottom floor of the SS title. And it's no restaurant, but I guess it still makes enough sense that it's in the storage area of this ship. The title is a really cool and underappreciated place though. Once you beat the game, you can take the ship back and forth between Lily Cove and Slateport City, and then there are a number of people to hang out with and battle on board. I like that it lets you look out the window while you're sailing. It's a treat for the eyes I wasn't initially expecting. It's pretty captivating. And then in the back rooms of the abandoned ship dungeon near Dewford Town, a room key for one of the doors is hiding inside a trash can. This one's a lot more functional and you get led to it pretty overtly, but hey, trash is still trash. This one is part of a fun little side quest in this weird area of the game that's a lot more grim than what we're used to. This abandoned ship has a really unique, uncanny, and ominous feeling to it. It's a big change of pace from the rest of the game. That's all the trash in Hoenn though. In Fire Red and Leaf Green, the remade SS Anne has some better offerings this time around that make a bit more sense. This time all 3 of the trash cans in the kitchen have berries inside, and then there's a bonus trash can on the bottom floor that has a hyper potion. It's all pretty nice. Discarded fruit in the kitchen, that makes perfect sense. And then the early hyper potion is just a nice bonus for those looking. Way better than a great ball. There's another subtle thing that the Kanto remakes do here that I want to appreciate, and that's that the trash cans that you're supposed to interact with have been made notably distinct from the ones that are purely background pieces. In most houses in Gen 3 Kanto, the back row of furniture and appliances will have this dish cabinet object that seemingly has a small waistband attached to it, and these let you know that they're set pieces right from the get-go, as while the bin is there, it's small enough to the point where you can only interact with the dish cabinet next to it. And when you do interact with the cabinet, it just lets you know that there are dishes inside and it doesn't mention the trash. And this is in contrast with the much more noticeable and tile-sized trash cans that you'll see on the boat and in the gym. So I think some respect is due here for the games doing a better job communicating what's worth interacting with in an environment, even if it's something really minor like this. They unfortunately do not have this in common with the Hoenn games, which have the usual empty cans littered about the region, but with the new and improved coloring of the GBA, they're sharper and more eye-catching than ever. I mean, if I see this in a room, I'm drawn to it. I gotta check it out. It's just too bad that it's empty 99% of the time, but all in a day's work in an RPG. I'll never give up looking. And you know, it's actually a little known fun fact that 90% of RPG players stop looking in the trash cans and give up right before hitting it big. We definitely don't want to end up like them, so let's head to the next generation and keep searching. Moving into Generation 4, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum set the most reasonable bar thus far for trash collecting. Empty trash cans are once again a common sight across the region of Sinnoh, but we can actually collect from them at the Old Chateau, the Hotel Grand Lake, and the Pokemon Mansion. And being able to find things that are still usable in the garbage at these places makes a lot of sense, because they all very clearly have, or have had in the Chateau's case, wealthy patrons who would be likelier to discard nicer things. Even though it's been abandoned and is now a hangout place for ghosts and ghouls, the Old Chateau is still an ornate manor in an exclusive corner of the woods with plenty of space and nice furniture. It's not hard to imagine the type of person who lived here. Probably at least someone well enough off to throw away that extra antidote. I have to imagine they had plenty. And the same is true with the mansion and the hotel. Mr. Backlot is a filthy rich mansion haver. He finds some medicine in his garbage. He doesn't need it. I'll be taking that. And the hotel is filled with wealthy patrons, where it would seem these two socialites no longer have need for this max revive. But don't worry, I'll find a use for it. All put together, I think this is our best setup so far. The trash is relatively spread around the region, it's in places that make sense, and they make it worth your while. Good job, Pokemon. This might be the first one where it feels at least close to worth it to check every can. So that was honestly pretty satisfying. I can't wait to see what the other games in this generation have in store. And I'm gonna keep waiting, because they have nothing. Heart Gold and Soul Silver have no collectible trash. None. I'm seething and molding. So much for these being the best Pokemon games. Every trash can is a trick. They even got rid of the leftovers in the Celadon restaurant from the originals. And all I got was this note in Professor Elm's lab explaining how to stop my Pokemon from evolving. You press B, by the way. Why is this in the trash instead of a textbook or something? You know, these are my favorite games before I realized this incredible, massive blunder. So I'm just gonna have to switch back to my old favorite games. We'll be getting to those ones soon. But as for Heart Gold and Soul Silver, if nothing ever comes of checking the trash, you shouldn't be able to. This one's a major letdown. Let's go into Gen 5. Black and white are fine, but they don't do anything too noteworthy. There's plenty of trash cans, but it's another situation where there's only one with an item in it, and then that item is leftovers. You can find it in the post-game at the village bridge on the left side. Leftovers are always welcome, and it's fun to find them in unusual places, but they're definitely not reinventing the wheel here. It's too bad you can't encounter a Trubbish or something in the empty cans. I feel like they missed an opportunity there. No, it's just standardly fine. I still think Leftovers is good enough on its own to warrant the chore of checking every bin. But with that said, we are finally at Black 2 and White 2. We're stepping into incredible territory here, folks, because they really thought of everything this time around. The Gen 5 sequels introduced the medal system, which is essentially just achievements for Pokemon, and it's a perfect fit. There's tons of random, little things to do, and Mr. Medal is always ready to reward you for messing around in these ways. From the most basic to the most advanced, if you can do it, there's usually a medal for it. Taking steps, saving the game, looking at signs, and even checking the trash cans. Oh yeah, we've got an achievement now. It's time to take out the garbage. And the actual medal you get is really interesting here. As the description reads, a medal for curiosity seekers who checked trash cans even though they knew they were empty. And that's poignant, to say the least. But while that was true of the games up until now, it's fascinatingly not the case in these games specifically. these are the most trash-dense games so far, with 7 cans having items in them. And while they're not incredibly thematic or powerful like some individual instances have been in the past, the feature is actually getting utilized, and has a sort of weird focus on top of that. Not only are they directly acknowledging that the trash cans are usually empty, but also coordinating the event with a game where the opposite is true, frequently rewarding you for looking. As usual, incredible stuff from Black 2 and White 2. Let's quick rapid fire these off so you know where to look. You get an antidote in West Burbank City, a revive by the Ferris wheel in Nimbasa, there's a zinc above the PWT fountain, there's a full restore in this southern house in Humalau, another full restore by this vending machine in Twist Mountain, iron in the house by the Pokemon Center in Mistelton, a max repel in the center of Accumula, and finally a PP up northwest of the village bridge. Pretty huge haul for all the trash heads. These 2 games finally broke the mold outright. Checking the trash is worth it in these installments, with the medal system and self-awareness just being the cherry on top. But would you believe me that the fun is just beginning? Because an even greater trash can experience is right around the corner. Let's dumpster dive right in. X and Y once again directly address the issue by having a man in Lumio City outright tell you he collects the trash of the region and is systematically emptying the trash cans. So it's no wonder we never find any, we have this waste warrior to contend with. But we still have some excellent trash to engage with inside these larger green bins. Maybe the collector is missing these few, but I think it would make more sense if this is where he's actually storing all the trash of the region. At the Pokemon Village and the Lost Hotel, these larger bins have timed respawning trash, along with loot tables and even possible Pokemon hiding inside. So we're frequently finding new, varied, and sometimes even exciting trash every time the bins reset. Both locations have a bin that refills once a day, and then 3 that refill once a week. There's a number of different options for each occurrence. You can even get an Eevio light from a weekly bin at the Pokemon Village. And that's way too good of an item to just be sitting in the garbage, so I'm gonna call finders keepers on that one. And then sometimes there can be a Pokemon living inside. Daily bins can have that Trubbish encounter that I was asking for, in addition to its evolution Garbodor, and then the weekly bins can give you one of the Rotom forms at the Lost Hotel, or a Banette at the Pokemon Village. Wild animals in the garbage, timed items of varying rarity, a bit of unusual complexity even. This is how trash should operate in an RPG. Because in reality, a garbage can would never be a static object. The trash inside would be a reflection of the environment that it's in and the amount of time that's passed. Different things get tossed in and eventually taken out. It's almost like a living thing in a way. The makeup changing depending on who and when it was interacted with. So this is without a doubt the best garbage yet. Since they respawn and use loot tables, you'll keep finding new things as long as you're willing to look. This is a true diamond in the rough on multiple levels. What a cool find. Such a great concept here. It is a touch bittersweet though, because after this, the trash falls off hard, and it never really recovers. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire have a trash collector again. This time he's at the Battle Resort, but he just has all the trash spread out on the floor and lets you take it. Kind of ruins the point of it, but hey, free is free. Gen 7 is completely empty except for a tiny mushroom back on the SS Ann in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. And there's nothing in Sun and Moon or Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. It's pretty disappointing. And then there's a single can in Sword and Shield's Moto Stoke that respawns a daily Pokeball. And with BDSP being a near carbon copy of the original Gen 4 with the same cans, that's unfortunately the sad end to our trash can adventure. I can find trash cans in Scarlet and Violet, but not any I can interact with. I think it's over, folks. This is probably the full extent of RPG trash cans in the series, past, present, and future. They had an interesting run. It got very disappointing there at the end, but I was pretty enticed with some of the series' offerings in Gens 4, 5, and 6, and you can never understate the value of leftovers. That alone would have me checking cans on a first playthrough. Ultimately, I think it's pretty unfortunate that this phenomenon seems to be on its way out, because they made checking every can legitimately worth the effort in Black 2 and White 2, and then they really made something of the idea in a different way in X and Y. They were really hitting a stride before letting it go. I guess if there's any other conclusion to be made here, it's that for the most part, the Pokemon world is an extremely clean one, and the people really want to keep it that way. I think it's time we can finally answer the big question. Is checking every bin in Pokemon worth it? And you're gonna have to excuse my nuance here, because I'd have to say that my answer is usually, but not always. I'd say Gens 1 and 7 are pretty big busts, along with the Hoenn and Johto remakes, but with every other game giving either leftovers or at least a small slew of items, yeah, I'd say it's worth checking just as much as anything else. It is a trash can after all. How often can we reasonably expect to find something usable in there? So I think they generally hit a decent balance with that idea in mind. But on the other side of that, the games have definitely miscommunicated about this a good number of times over the years. A game that has nothing in any of the trash cans probably should have just removed the feature entirely. The most noteworthy thing I find with this whole phenomenon though is the storytelling that they've managed to cook up with it over the years, and the sometimes outright meta references that have been tied to it. It's fun to find leftovers in the trash at a restaurant, and it's sort of satisfying to have a character's actions in-world explain why you never found anything in any of those bins. And so while I think trash cans in Pokemon can be a frustrating chore based around the player's fear of missing out, I also appreciate the unique things that they have done with the concept. And hopefully all of that goes a bit farther than me just saying yes or no. Similarly to the trash that we search for, it's a mixed bag. And thus concludes our trash can treasure tour. Hope you had a great time. Thanks to Load if you made it this far, and let me know what you thought down below. This video was actually a suggestion from a commenter, and I found the idea fascinating, so I just ran with it and got to work. I definitely got plenty of my own Pokemon stuff on the mind, but if there's anything you're hoping I'll cover, feel free to let me know. I want to keep making stuff that y'all enjoy. That's all I got for you folks. Keep searching those trash cans, I'm sure we'll find something eventually. I'll see you next time. Droomish out.